Hey everyone, today I'd like to take a casual peek into part 3 of my first Q&A. We'll go ahead and continue on, and we have a question from the Review Revolution. If you watch them, which animated movies do you like best so far? DC, with movies such as Green Lantern First Flight, Public Enemies, Batman the Red Hood, or Marvel with movies such as Ultimate Avengers the movie, Hulk vs. Thor / Wolverine, and why? Okay, I'm pretty bad at this because out of all of the comic-related movies that have gone direct-to-video, I've actually only seen one, and that is the Ultimate Avengers, the first movie that came out quite a while ago. And I do have the Superman Doomsday movie, but I just recently found that at a discount store, and I still have yet to watch that one. I can answer a reworded version of this question, and that would be, which one am I more interested in watching? And that would be the DC movies. I think that out of the movies they've released so far, I think the DC movies have a better story. Marvel so far, the stories look okay. It's just that DC has more interesting stories, such as they have the death of Superman, and of course New Frontier, which I really want to watch. So until Marvel actually produces more movies with better storylines from their books, I think I'm more interested in watching the DC ones. Okay, let's go back to Thunderhound. How did you come up with your username? I think I may have answered this one before. Oh, excuse me, I got a notification there. My username goes back to the days when I was heavily playing those massively multiplayer online role-playing games such as EverQuest. And Aetherus was a name I typically used for my spellcasters. And 69 comes from the year of my birth, 1969. So you know that I'm 40 years old. And I just combined the two because I believe Aetherus was already taken. So that's the origin for Aetherus 69. Okay, going back to Lunacy here. Given the opportunity to time travel, which time period would you visit, why, and what's the first thing you would do? This is actually pretty interesting because with all of the time travel stories we've been exposed to, I've never really given it a serious thought about where I would go. I've always thought more about the implications of time travel. If it were possible to leave my current time thread and go to another one, I don't think I would ever land on the same time thread in the past or in the future. It would always been a parallel thread, and given the infinite possible time threads that there are, getting back, quote, home, I don't think is a possibility either. Once you leave your time thread, chances of actually finding your original thread is pretty much an impossibility. It's interesting to have heard what others have responded to this question, because all of the responses I've heard so far, everyone's gone back in time. No one's actually gone forward in time. I think it'd be interesting to actually go forward in time to see the consequences of actions you've actually made in the present, and then actually go back to the present time if you could, make a change in that decision, and actually go back forward in time again to see how things have changed, and just keep looping through that to see all the possible permutations of a changed decision. I guess that would be my answer to the time travel question. Okay, on to another lunacy question. What type of horror movie preference is your favorite and why? Okay, I think you're asking me what subgenre of horror is my favorite. And if you are, I actually prefer the psychological horror movies. I'm just not a fan of the slasher film or the gore film such as Saw or zombie flicks. I actually prefer psychological horror films because it does not rely on images on screen to actually scare you. Perfect examples of movies like that are Jacob's Ladder or Silence of the Lambs, even though it's not a true horror movie. But it, if you take a scene from Silence of the Lambs, such as Hannibal Lecter's escape sequence in the cell, there's that sequence where he approaches the guard in the cell and rips his face off with his teeth. And if you actually watch that sequence in slow motion or frame by frame, you'll see that Hannibal Lecter approaches the guard, and just before he actually bites the guy's face off, he or the camera switches angles, and Hannibal Lecter actually does the deed, and then the camera actually switches back after Hannibal Lecter has actually bitten the poor guard's face. And that technique actually forces the viewer to fill in the details of the actual biting sequence. And I love those kind of films because your imagination is a greater generator of scary images than the actual film itself. So I don't know if that actually made sense or not, but I love horror films that don't rely on special effects or props to frighten you. I prefer horror films that engage your imagination to scare you. Okay, next question is from Thunderhound. What inspired you to start making videos for YouTube? Before the beginning of this year, I was on a break from the action figure hobby. The break was about a year and a half, almost 2 years long. And at the end of last year, about November, December, I saw a DC Universe Classics figure in Walmart. It was the Joker, and I wanted to know more information about it. I had a Nightwing figure from the early in the year, but I never really followed it, so I wanted to get more information, so I went on YouTube just to see what was up with this DC Universe Classics line. And what I found was a whole bunch of collectors actually sharing the hobby, or sharing their figures or their collections on display, and I thought it was actually rather neat. I was a sealed collector for a long time, and after I saw those videos, I went to my garage and just looked at all of the figures that I had accumulated. And I never purchased the figures for investment. I just enjoyed them, but I never really opened them. And just looking at all of my figures, I decided what was the point of keeping these guys sealed in tubs, never to be really opened, other than just to be looked at. And a lot of them were purchases because I did not have them when I was young. They were purchased to relive my youth, but I wasn't enjoying them, so as other collectors were on YouTube. So I decided to give it a try, bust the figure open, shoot some video of it, and I thought it was actually pretty fun. And I found out that I've enjoyed my figures a lot more, and I haven't regretted it ever since. I still keep some figures sealed. They're just worth keeping sealed because they're pretty much works of art, really. And but on the whole, I'll open my figures now, because you just have a lot more fun with them out of their prisons. So, but I would say that the fellow collectors out there that actually shared their collections with everyone is what inspired me to start making videos as well. Okay, I've rambled way too long, and it's past 10 minutes, and I only have a few questions left, but I don't think it's gonna last until the 15-minute mark. So I'm gonna break it here, and we'll have what part is it? 4 of the question and answer session. So stay tuned.